panorama of prehistory and history on the Great Lakes takes us from wooden log dugout canoes to birch bark canoes, then to masted schooners and steamboats, and now to the mighty lake freighters that frequent its shores. There are many mysteries and tragedies that have taken place on the waters of the Great Lakes. And probably most pronounced in my mind is that of the Edmund Fitzgerald, because I was only 20 years old when that happened, and I remember it clearly. It was etched into my mind. It was such a great mystery at the time, and truly great tragedy. However, the first mystery tragedy is that of the Griffin, which commenced way back in 1679. In fact, the Griffin was the first ship to ever sail or make voyage on the Great Lakes. She was built on the east bank of the Niagara River, where the Cayuga Creek empties into it. Can you imagine the building of this ship? The technology of the mid-17th century. Here is how the construction came down, and it's quite remarkable if you ask me. A gathering of explorers and adventure seekers who were mostly French came under the leadership of Pierre Robert Cavell, Sieur de la Salle, and a priest, Father Hennepin. And they cut trees from the forest themselves with which to undertake the construction of the Griffin, a ship that would be from 45 to 60 tons. And the waters upon which the Griffin would set out upon were for the most part at that time unknown. Now, it was La Salle's intent to sail the upper Great Lakes, and it was to that end that they cleared the aforementioned site and laid the keel for the Griffin. Remarkably, these men made very quick work of the enterprise, and they worked well throughout the winter, and incredibly by the spring thaw, when it came to the woodlands, the ice melted away, and the boat was then all ready to be launched. And she was christened the Griffin, and sometimes it's spelled Griffin, other times Grifoo or Ffon, or Le Griffin. And as one might expect, her outfitting was rather sparse. Her mission? To go for furs, much in demand in the European markets, to trade with the Indians along the shores. So it was on August 7, 1679, that the Griffin set sail with 34 men, sailing up the Niagara River and then into Lake Erie's wide waters. Can we ever possibly imagine what the Native American Indians, gathered to watch the Griffin's launch, were thinking? They must have felt astonished. Here they are, used to their dugout canoes and their birch bark canoes, and they're watching this, what must have looked to them like a massive ship with these great white sails billowing in the wind, sailing smoothly across the waters that they had only transgressed with these very primitive means of conveyance. But they served the Indians well. But they must have felt astonished. Lake Erie was crossed in only 3 days, and where they anchored at was at the mouth of the Detroit River. One source reports that they took on fresh bear meat and other game animals and then continued on with their adventure. It was Father Hennepin that named the water at the head of the Detroit River Lake St. Clair, as well as the river that emptied into it. They were thus named because it was on the day of the Festival of St. Clair on their calendar upon their arrival at that point. So they honored the festival and St. Clair by naming the waters after the saint. Now, one might say the Griffin and crew had favorable winds in their sails, though that would change shortly as they headed into the swelling Lake Huron waters. I wonder if any of the Native American Indians had warned the crew about the evil Mishipishu, an incredibly huge and angry panther that dwells beneath the waters of the Great Lakes, and by the swift thrashing of its enormous tail caused the frequent violent storms that would strike up quite suddenly then, and still do today. So he's still quite active beneath the waters today. If they were warned, it would have soon come to mind as they were caught up in one of those savage summer storms, which occasionally sweep the area. But as is often the case, the storm was not of great endurance, and the large waves calmed, and I'm sure the nerves of the crew calmed also. What an exciting thing it would have been to see Michigan, though, as that crew saw it. as the crew of the Griffin saw it. The virgin pine forest, the Native Americans on the shore, the domed wigwams or lodges of the Indian villages, the smoke from their fires, the aroma of the woodlands. It would have been incredible to see. But anyway, she sailed on until reaching the Straits of Mackinac, where they rested at the Jesuit mission at Saint Ignace de Michilimackinac. After their brief respite, they sailed on, entering the waters of Lake Michigan in early September of that year, and the lake at that time was called by the Indians Illinois. They anchored once again at Green Bay, where LaSalle found a plethora, thank you, Jerry, of valuable furs. LaSalle had business considerations to attend with, though, as his creditors, who had backed the expedition, were pressing for their reward. They wanted their money and they wanted their profit. The Griffin was loaded full with furs and then headed back to satisfy those creditors' demands. Plans were made, though, for the Griffin to return the following spring. Now, a party was left behind, headed by LaSalle himself, to explore the wilderness, and on September 18th, with pilot and 5 sailors, the Griffin set off, and it was the last it was ever seen, or the crew members. That very night, Michipichus was making trouble again as a gale swept the lake and continued unabated for many days. Then it is believed the Griffin was lost with all hands on deck during that storm. Others, without much proof, have put forth the idea that the crew turned traitor and actually landed, sold the furs, and scuttled the ship, and went inland and were killed by the local Indians. For many years, including fairly recently, it has been reported that the wreck of the Griffin has been found, but I don't think it ever truly will be. And the evidence of its being found recently are, from what I've been able to tell, fairly inconclusive. So I don't think it will ever be found. It remains one of the truly great unsolved mysteries of the Great Lakes, and sometimes it is great to have mysteries that are never solved. I hope you enjoyed this little look back at a mysterious chapter in the Great Lakes history, and thank you for stopping by. Have a great day, and God bless.